So in this video, I'm gonna share a bit about why I chose to pursue a career in naturopathic medicine. And like most people who pursue this career path, it starts with a personal journey. So that is something I think is really cool and unique to naturopathic medicine. Is it seems like almost everyone in the program either personally has suffered a very challenging health journey, or someone very, very close to them in their, immediate family has had some, challenge within their health or within the healthcare system at large. And so it just seems like the people who have really gone through it in regards to their health and have seen all of the shortcomings in conventional allopathic medicine and the conventional healthcare system realize how valuable naturopathic medicine and all that it offers is. And so for me, I had broken my neck, had a spinal cord injury at a young age, and was paralyzed from the neck down. And that was the start of a lifetime of various health battles, from mental to physical and spiritual at times, for sure. And I'll say that Western medicine has been great for the acute stuff. So when I originally broke my neck, the surgery and the post-op rehab was incredible, and we need amazing surgeons, and we absolutely need MDs and DOs to deliver that level of care for people who have been badly injured or are dealing with an acute condition, right? So where conventional medicine failed me was basically after I left the hospital and did my rehab and started to work on my chronic recovery. And, they just didn't really offer much after that. I had great physical therapists, which, they're their own kind of field of practice, right? But even at a certain point, they stopped being able to really help aid in my progress and growth. So I had to go outside the system and discovered stem cells through a lot of independent research, basically where I feel like I had plateaued years later in my recovery from that spinal cord injury. And all the specialists and doctors and therapists that I talked to said there wasn't really much else out there. I found something in a form of regenerative medicine, which, the school that I attend, Sonoran University, the guy, Dr. Reardon, who made stem cells, kind of mainstream stem cell therapeutics, he runs the clinic in Panama that people like Chris Hemsworth and Tony Robbins have got their stem cells from. And, he has got a whole regenerative medicine center at my school. So that was my first primary exposure to a naturopathic medicine remedy. And I know that might surprise some people listening to this, because you might think, oh, isn't that cutting edge of Western medicine? And yeah, so naturopathic medicine is not just herbs and tinctures and stuff like that. It's basically combining the best of Western medicine and the best of Eastern medicine and providing that to patients in a holistic, integrated, and personalized way, and in a way that focuses on the root cause. And so I didn't really know all of this, though, obviously, when I was deciding basically what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I had graduated. I had aspirations of working in tech and startups, and venture capital, and my health actually got really, really bad during COVID. A lot of new symptoms and issues came up that, I never dealt with before, and I'd been doing really good since the stem cells with my whole spinal cord injury. And so I basically spent a year and a half being passed along specialist to specialist, and no one could help me figure out what was going on with me. And I was basically dismissed, told that I was either psychosomatic and making up a lot of these just absolutely quality of life destroying things too, which is like, insane. I get it if it was like, oh, I have stomach aches or something. But it was like crippling fatigue, brain fog, insane bloating, insane stomach pains. I lost a ton of weight and muscle spasms and spasticity, something that I had actually kind of risen above through recovering from my spinal cord injury. They made a comeback. And so you would just think that I wouldn't be getting dismissed that easily. But I guess when you only spend, 10 minutes with your patients max, that's about as much insight as you can give. So it was just brutal. I won't forget, many particulars in that process, namely waiting months to see a neurologist in my area, and finally getting there, and they give me the PA, and they weren't even gonna have me meet with the neurologist at all. And I got MRIs and everything to go over to see if this was, as a result of something from my spinal cord injury, or if it was totally separate, which is, my hunch all along, because I've been doing great, but I had to rule it out. And I didn't even get to see the neurologist originally. I had to basically beg the PA to bring him in, and they just said, everything looks good, sorry, we can't really offer you anything, because again, it didn't fall into their specialty of medicine. So, it just seemed like, oh, well, this is not neurological, so good luck to you. Maybe go try, GI or psychiatrist or whatever. They just, nothing they can do, because there's nothing integrative in our system. You have these silos of people, and you're supposed to have a primary care physician who, he had no clue, he couldn't help me at all. And he was like top of his class and is overall very smart, incredibly smart doctor. But he was just like, yeah, like it's probably just your spinal cord injury, and I'm so sorry. There's nothing like, I don't think that exists that like anyone can do. And, just like, so like, there's just so much pity in his tone of voice. And he really made it just sound like, it's probably over for me. And then the GI doc telling me it was psychosomatic and, just IBS and all this and that. And I symptom matched to a couple of things I felt like it could be, and just asked him to give me the test. And he was very reluctant to do so. I had to basically demand that he give me a SIBO test, and turned out that, I was through the roof high in terms of my levels of what they detect in a SIBO test, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So I had a really bad version of that. Then I got hit with a $1,500 drug to try and treat that. The only drug that they offer basically for SIBO, which is not covered by insurance. And worked for like 2 weeks, and then everything came back. And then he just basically said there's nothing more that he could do. So that was great. And that's when I started to branch out and, was looking for, I knew about functional medicine and stuff at this point, just from listening to a bunch of different podcasts out there, and just having this, background passion, ever since that original injury for over, the past decade. And so I was like, well, this seems like good as time as any to try all this functional medicine stuff out. And, sure enough, I had regressed so bad. I mean, I was doing 4 to 5 hours of stretching and mobility exercises and rolling out, and just trying to get my body to quit regressing and losing all the progress it had made, and to just no avail whatsoever. And I was like, physically, emotionally, spiritually, like dying inside. It was horrible. And these doctors just did not seem to really, care or understand that at all. But this guy, took a comprehensive intake on me, all my health history, first time that had ever happened, and listened when I explained everything I'd been going through and my symptoms. And he gave me, tests that I didn't even know existed, that I found out don't exist, and conventional medicine because the insurance companies basically just don't cover them. And that's a theme for a lot of these precision tests that help get to the root cause of things, which, you decide what to make of that. But some people, something to do with symptom suppression and having a patient for life is more profitable than a patient cured. So, but we won't get into that for this video. But, he, told me about these kind of cutting edge tests that can get to more of the root level of what could be causing all these issues. Sure enough, the reason my SIBO wasn't healed from that drug, which is super common, is because there was a lot of other things I had going on inside me that were preventing it to really take basically the medication. And so for me, that was serious biofilm, super high levels of fungus in my intestines, and copper toxicity, high levels of copper. And I think there was mold too. So I was like kind of a mess, right? And clearly none of those symptoms were in my head. These are all like scientifically grounded, things that cause the exact symptoms I was having to occur. And a lot of what I just explained, things like metals and, chronic infections and things, these are so neglected. I came to realize in conventional medicine and even in the education of it, it's just very surface level. And again, it's like, okay, is there a medication for it? Okay, cool. Let's try that. Oh, that didn't work? Oh, well, crap. What do we do now? Hand them off to someone else who maybe has a different idea, a different specialist in a different field. Now, again, I don't want to dog, too heavily on DOs and MDs, because I think that all doctors, most doctors try to help their patients to the best of their abilities for sure. And they have different parameters that they have to work within. So a lot of it is, the system, but just overall, why I'm so drawn to naturopathic medicine and why I think it is the future of medicine and why I have decided to pursue this as my profession is the guiding philosophies or the pillars of naturopathic medicine, which are so common sense to me. And I think anyone who's been through struggles with their health, but are not at the forefront of conventional or allopathic medicine. So those include the treating of the whole person, not, the isolated symptoms or systems, I should say, but all the systems working as a whole. And I know there'll be some pushback for people in the conventional space saying that they do that, but that's just not been my experience. And again, you do residency to specialize in a particular system typically. And so they can say what they want, but again, that's my lived experience. So naturopathic medicine, though, very much emphasizes treating the whole person, physical, emotional, spiritual, everything. So that resonates, obviously. Getting to the root cause, I think that's such an obvious thing, but because the incentives in our healthcare system are so backwards and because it's so profit driven, and you can really basically track the creation of allopathic medicine and the dissolution of alternative medicine back to when Rockefeller bankrolled the conventional medical education system that we have, I think like 60 years ago or so. But he basically funded and created the medical system, or his foundation, and also the American Health Association too, grew out of all of his ventures he had in, healthcare and things with medications and wanting to profit off of that, and the petroleum, that he controlled and could repurpose into these different medications and everything. So that's not conspiracy theory. That is just a fact, and we live with the implications of that, and the parameters that is set up in our system today. But naturopathic medicine seeks to kind of transcend those parameters and go above and beyond the standard of care that those parameters allow. And so with that, another huge focus is prevention. We also have the do no harm, which is the one we share with, allopaths, which is obviously super important, but I would argue that they don't even really follow that if they're not considering more heavily and pursuing more heavily lifestyle interventions, and they're not taught formally in nutrition and botanicals and supplements, these things that can have a greater impact with much less of the side effects of medications and things that they're using on the front line. So it's not their fault, but it is just a flaw in the education that they receive, in my opinion. And my brother is in school to be a DO, my mom is a DO, and I had my life saved by a bunch of MDs, DOs at the children's hospital I stayed at for 2 months when I was paralyzed. So there's a time and place, obviously, but this is just why I have chosen naturopathic medicine, and it's these philosophies. The other big one for me was the doctor as teacher and educator. So the experience of spending so much real time with my doctor, with them actually listening and with them actually educating me on my condition and what's causing my issues and what I can do to fix them and how those things work, was so unbelievably just like amazing, coming from a year and a half of no one really seeming to care to work with me and hear me out when I came to them presenting all of this research and things I had done and just like dismissing it. And I know there are many good doctors too, conventional doctors that don't do that, but there are way too many that do that. And it's just, again, the way that they're set up. You have to think of it like that. It's like, do you want to be a doctor that's only able to spend 5-10 minutes with your patients? And you're paid based on how many you can turn out in a given day, or do you want to work with patients and build a partnership with them, get to know them genuinely, and work with them to help them reach a state of optimal health and well-being, with much less limitations, from the system and what you can do with them. So, yeah, for all those reasons, I decided to pursue this path in naturopathic medicine, and I'm still early in my journey, but so far it's been great. The schooling is super rigorous, and as someone with a business background, I feel like I am getting an incredible education in the body and how it operates on the biochemical level and the structural level. And I talk about this in other videos, but my brother and I, we talk about our education as he is in a DO program, and we're basically on the same timeline, and the education is super, super similar. So I just say that and I reiterate that in videos because it is an annoying thing to constantly have to address all of the misinformation around us being, quacks or what have you. I think that's just because that's what they're taught to believe. They don't really understand what our education is. It's still, the best kept secret in healthcare, in my opinion. But that's changing, right? So, ultimately, I want to just have a system and be able to practice medicine in a way that takes the best of Western medicine, the best of Eastern holistic medicine, and combining them and doing that under the philosophies that I shared of treating the whole person at the root cause in a personalized way for them that optimizes that individual patient's health outcomes. So I can't think of really a more compelling existence. I thought for a long time, what's something I could do to help lots of people leverage some of my personal struggles and never get bored, and this is that. So that's why I chose naturopathic medicine. And if you're considering the path, I would say it's not an easy road, but definitely worth it if you have the passion. And if you're someone considering seeing a naturopath for the first time or a functional medicine doctor, I'm obviously a bias, but I would say it could change your life. And for those of you who are calling us, quack still, or dismissing the legitimacy in the medicine that we practice, I would just encourage you to keep a little bit more of an open mind and better educate yourself as well on what naturopathic medical school entails and what it offers the public in terms of, health options and outcomes. So anyways, if you watch this whole video, thank you so much. Likes and subscribes apparently are how, make it on this platform. So that would be great. Although I'm going to have to work on saying that because it just sounds so cringy every time. But, I do want to get this information out to the world, and I want more people to know about naturopathic medicine. So, if you could join the good fight and, share, naturopathic medicine with the world, I think that, you're doing a lot of good. And I know that I speak on behalf of everyone in the field that we appreciate all the support that we can get, and growing this and making this type of care more mainstream and just raising the standard of care for medicine in general in the United States and the world at large. So again, thank you for watching. Stay healthy.